Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Sweet SD.
And I'm Machine Head Matt.
And this week on our show, it is another one of our Council of Doof episodes. Matt, tell the people what the heck that means.
Well, once a month, individuals that donate to us on Patreon at the Doof Warrior level or above, our Council of Doof, will get to collectively decide on a movie for the community to consider for entrance into the canon. Scott and I, and then maybe some guests, will meet, talk about that movie, and then present our case for why it should or should not be admitted.
But as always, we are leaving the final decision up to you guys. So stick around, listen to this episode, listen to our arguments, and then find the link in the show notes to cast your vote. We will be putting that link up on our Patreon account, but as always, it will be an unlocked post, so you do not have to be a member of our Patreon to vote in this poll. Of course, we always suggest that you do that, but you don't have to. Matt, what has the council brought for us this month?
This week, the council has put forth the 2009 animated film Redline.
So we're doing another of the animes, huh?
Well, I mean, people say it's an anime. It says it's an anime on the tin, but we're going to have to talk about that.
Oh, are we? Yes, so this is going to be a full spoilers deep dive, or as deep as it is possible to go in this movie, into Redline. So if you have not watched the movie, go do that right now. I think it's available for free on a service called Tubi. That's what I watched it on. It's also for rent on any of the popular streaming platforms. So go watch Redline, then come back, and then we'll talk about it, and then we will vote.
Sounds good.
Hey, Matt, why don't we just dive right into this movie?
Okay.
Let's talk about Redline. Matt, what is Redline about? What is this movie?
It is a story about the most popular racing event in the galaxy, the Redline, and the various racers who compete in it.
Well, that is true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'd be hard-pressed to really summarize this. It's funny, the Wikipedia article is like one of those hilariously overly detailed and convoluted summary articles where you're just, like, you can't help but smile just reading the summary because you're like, I don't even remember this happening. This movie is so convoluted and complex.
Yeah. And this movie is directed by Takeshi Koike.
Sounds good.
Is that right?
Sounds good.
Probably not, but that's his name. Okay. So, Matt, tell me what you thought about Redline. What did you think overall about this movie?
Oh man, this was spectacular. In the literal sense of the word, it was an absolute spectacle. Like from the first frame to the last, your visual cortex is just lighting up. In fact, like there were parts of the movie where my brain like couldn't process what was happening because it was happening like too fast and just too much detail, and it was like temporarily going blind, which you would think would be bad, but actually it was like, holy shit, like you're just cramming so much. It's just sort of a tour de force of animation, and I'm just talking about the visual aspect. Actually, I mean, I think that the story is actually very fun, even if it is this extremely kind of stripped down and stylized and mannered way of going about storytelling, which I'm maybe more excited to talk about than the animation, even just because it really did things for me. What did you think?
Yeah, I liked it a whole bunch. I agree with everything you said about the visuals. We need to spend a lot of time talking about how this movie looks, because nothing looks like this movie. Like nothing. I've never seen a movie with this look before. I've never seen a movie. It's vibrant. It's colorful. It moves constantly. I can't imagine what it took to make this movie. I cannot imagine. Like this is like for the last 2 months in a row, we've done a Japanese animated movie for our Council of Doof, and both of these movies, Akira and Redline, have been animation in a style that just leave me like scratching my head and being like, okay, but how did you how long did that take?
Right.
Like everything is moving like constantly. Like, you know, we've talked about one of my big complaints about anime in general is most anime is done on the cheap, and they cheat a lot by just throwing static images of characters on screen, and then there's just dialogue and there nothing's moving. Maybe like the mouth is moving, whatever. And that's a lot of anime. Even in the dialogue scenes, things are moving. The camera's moving and switching scenes. Like we've got just these fascinating choices of shots of like where we're going to put the quote unquote camera in some of these dialogue scenes. And then in the race scenes, they're just electric. It's a feast for your eyes. It really is.
Those parts remind me a bit of the Speed Racer film that we both like, but but taking full advantage of the fact that it's animated, and so you can be ridiculous. You can stretch out the aspect ratio of the actual car to emphasize in an almost Looney Tunes fashion. Oh, it's going real fast. It's just delightful.
Yeah, I love the stretching effect of when they hit the gas or hit the whatever the special stuff was.
Stormlight or whatever.
Whatever it is. The gimmick that makes them go fast. Yeah. The animation stretches to show how they're being kind of pushed and pulled forward. It's really great. I mean, it's almost as if someone took like the pod racing sequence from episode 1 and said, okay, this was the only good part of the movie. What if we did this, made a whole movie about it, and then turned it up to like 15?
Yeah.
That's what Redline is. Yeah. And it just works. It works. I was not as enamored by the story as it seems like you are. I do think one of the things that this movie does very well, it's like, it is not a complicated story. It is a very simple story. There's not a lot going on here, but I do think it tells the story in a way that at least I can appreciate, where, you know, it's there's not a lot of characters sitting around expositing towards each other, where we learn about the world through the action. Yeah. And I think that's really great.
I think it's funny because it's like there's simultaneously the most simplistic story in the world, and also there's 10,000 things happening because like, you know, you've got all these different racers and all of their backstories and personalities and like little gimmicks about them are portrayed in, I mean, talk about economical storytelling. Like there's the one part of the movie where it's just like the sort of the blurbs about each of the racers, and that just like 2-minute section or whatever, maybe 5 minutes, but however long it is, it's like cramming so much characterization and plot like background into the tiniest possible amount of screen time, and then that's all used later on when they're in the race later, and you kind of, you know, you these are characters now, right? Like each of these racers, yes, they may have like 2 lines, but it was properly set up and it properly pays off in pretty much every case. You know, So like for me, it was the crazy like boldness and just cramming as much story as possible into what is really still, like you said, a very simple, basic racing story.
There's a whole world going on around this story, and we really only get a sneak peek of it. We see some political maneuvering. Like, we know that there's all these different planets and they're all participating. We learn a lot about what's going on Robo World. But yeah, I mean, like, I really do love that the movie takes the time to introduce us to each one of these riders. And you could argue that some of it isn't like totally necessary. Like some of the 8 teams in the Redline race are more important than the others, right? Like Machine Head is pretty important. But like Gory Rider and Miki and Todorico, like they're not that important.
Sure.
But we get to learn about their rivalry, and we get to learn like their background, and we see them as people, and we understand them, and it like So like when things get nuts, when the race starts and everything is turned up to 15, not 11, 15,
Right.
we don't have to, there's less confusion there because you've already gotten like a snippet of who these people are. It's like, oh, those are those ones. I got it. And it allows the race to just be able to kind of go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think maybe that's the fun thing about it is so much of it is unnecessary. I mean, Funky Boy is unnecessary. like the fact that there's like that the people running the race appear to be like princesses who have princess magic.
Yeah.
Unnecessary, right? but it makes it fun, and there's no point where you're like, am I supposed to take it seriously that they have magic? It's like, no,
absolutely not.
Of course
nothing. You take nothing seriously.
Yeah, you take nothing seriously.
That's the one. I mean, like, I wrote this down because I laughed so hard that we defined this rivalry between Gory Rider and Mickey and Todorico, and so we go through this whole thing where Gory Rider's like he's a cop and he's being interviewed by a bunch of people and like, what do you say about violating their constitutional rights? And he just picks up that reporter and throws them across the room. And then they cut over to the other two, and it's just them like sitting there in silence, and one of them's peeling a banana, and then the other just goes, "Gory Rider, you motherfucker!" Like it's just so funny, and it's just so out there. It's so weird. It's so irreverent. It doesn't care about taking itself seriously. It doesn't care. Like it just does whatever it wants. It throws whatever it wants on the wall, and if you like it, great. If you don't, I don't care. That's the attitude of the movie.
It reminds me. It's funny. I don't know if this connection is going to make any sense to anyone except me, but it's like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, where like from scene to scene, it's just like what is the funny thing that happens now, and there's no like you just completely dissociate and float on the waters of Aqua Teen Hunger Force because there's no plot. It's completely random and hilarious. Now this has more of a plot than Aqua Teen Hunger Force for sure, but like there is this feeling from scene to scene like this is just the thing that happens next so that there's no pause.
Sure. Yeah.
There's never any break for a second. Like even, to call back to something you were saying a second ago, like even the still scenes, like when Sonishi is like having a meal and JP, comes and sits with her. It's like in a normal movie, this would be like just like a conversation, but it's like things are happening around them. The setting is really interesting. There's a weird waiter. There's weird food. Like nothing is static, and your attention cannot rest for a moment on anything, even in a scene that is really like that scene is almost the slowest and most intimate scene of the movie, and it's still incredibly complex and busy.
Yeah, totally. You want to know what my favorite scene that defines this movie's attitude about itself is?
What?
It is the scene where Sonoshi is watching the interviews on the television, and they cut to a scene of her, making repairs to her car, and she makes a comment that is like, "Oh, really great shot of my ass, guys." Like, because they have there's a camera angle that the news reporters on the TV show got basically just looking at her butt.
Yeah.
And from that scene, we then cut to her sitting down, and she's topless, and the camera just like ogles her boobs.
Yeah.
And it's just like that's the movie's attitude towards itself. That in the same scene, a character can chastise the filming crew of the news program for being exploitative, and then the movie exploits her boobs immediately after it. Like that is this movie's attitude about everything, and it's delightful. It really is. Yeah,
it's so just taking everything lightly, right? That like I didn't even mind that. Normally, I would have rolled my eyes and been like, "Oh, anime," but I was like,
"Well, yeah," because it's almost poking fun at itself at that point.
That's true. Yeah.
So I mean, it is gratuitous and ridiculous. That's there was nothing in that scene that needed her to be topless, but I think that pairing together just worked really, really well.
I think I almost I like self-conscious gratuitousness more than like pretending we're not actually being gratuitousness. I don't know. It feels more honest to me.
Yeah.
God.
God, where do we start? Like, there's a lot I want to talk about. I think a good place to really dive into maybe is the opening, is how this movie defines itself, because like this opening race is the movie like telling you what it's going to be, right? And we start like I love the start that we start on. The first shot of the movie is just like shells of nuts. Like it's this still shot of shells of nuts, and it's bright and colorful. And then we see the dog man that's eating the nuts. And then it's just the scene of all these people sitting around doing nothing and waiting. And it's basically one of the last like moments of calm in the entire movie. And then, you know, we like, I think the tension ratchets up really well, because there's this little vignette with this kid and his dad, and he's trying to get his dad to understand how to work the camera correctly so he can get a shot of the race cars coming. And so like there's this natural buildup, and the movie's cutting back and forth between like gears moving and the tire squealing and these really intense scenes of the race cars, but they're only like flashes, and then cutting back to the everyone just sitting around waiting. And it's like building the tension as his dad can't get the camera right, and the kid's like, no, get the lens cap off, and it like builds and builds and builds, and then the cars just tear through the intersection. They just tear through and then they're just gone. Yeah. They're just gone. And then it's still and silent for a few seconds, and then everyone erupts and cheers. And it's just like, and it is only at that point that then the movie allows us to like be with the cars. Like up until that point, we've been firmly, with the exception of little flashes, firmly in the POV of all the spectators. And then once they've driven by us and there's been this big tension release, then we go catch up with them and follow them for the rest of the race. I just think it's a great way to introduce everything, because it's like, it's kind of as if the movie's introducing you to the art style with stillness a bit before it allows itself to get crazy. It's like, look at how pretty these pictures look. Now we're gonna like make them go real fast.
Yeah,
you know?
Sure. I mean, because for a lot of that beginning part, you are just taking in like all the creatures.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, I mean, honestly, it reminds me of the feeling that I had when I was a kid, and like you suddenly go into the Mos Eisley Cantina in Star Wars for the first time, and you're just like, whoa, like there's a whole world here. There's so many. I'm curious about all of the things that I'm seeing, and a new shot, new things to be curious about, and you're just like, it's just delightful. I honestly think that I might not have felt that way since I saw Star Wars for the first time, and that by itself is a pretty amazing compliment to me.
I mean, this is such perfect timing, because the YouTube film essayist Patrick H. Willems did a video this past Monday on gonzo blockbusters, and it's basically these blockbusters that like Jupiter Ascending, like Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, these movies that did not do very good and failed commercially, but like were super into creating a world and like making that world feel believable, and making you curious of it in the way that Star Wars was. And I do think this movie slots in perfectly into that idea that like that like the Wachowskis did in Jupiter Ascending, like this movie built a whole world and stuffed it with detail. And every shot you're like, wait, what's that? Yeah. I want to know what that guy's deal is. I want to know what that's for. Yeah. Like even the cameramen of this race, the ships like responsible for filming it, there's like people like in pods in this hover thing, and you're not, it seems like kind of a cyborg type situation. Like you're not exactly sure, and the movie offers no explanation for that. Yeah. And it's like, I'm not chastising the movie for doing that. It just makes you curious. Yeah. And curiosity is what drives this movie. I think it's like, who's that? What's that? Where are we going? What's that going to do? Where, like, who's going to win? Like, it's just, that's what carries you through everything. Yeah.
And like you said, that like everything is up to 15. Like, and I think that also pulls you through, because you're amused by the novelty of situations that are actually, you've seen them 1,000 times. Like, for example, so for example, like the scene when the news media burst into his room where he's convalescing. It's like how many times have you seen a scene that's basically that scene, except in this one, there's like 500 news people, and they're like physically crushing each other with the eagerness to talk to this guy, and like their like heads are being crushed, and they're like everything about the visuals of it, you're just like you're caught between like laughing and just like appreciating the level of detail that's being put into it.
Yeah, it's so stylistic, it's so dynamic. It constantly, yeah, I love that, the squishing, like, and the sound design there really helps too, because it's like you can hear and feel the squishing.
Yeah.
It's so tactile. I loved it. Like, I was uncomfortable in that room, and that's not a feeling that animation gives me, because like animation usually like in the lesser animation, like the geography of the scene is much less evident, but that like I could feel that room, and the crushing nature of it. It's so good.
Yeah, just to call back to the other moment of going up to 15 that I think really tells you what kind of movie this is going to be, is you already mentioned it, the scene when they're all waiting, and then the cars come through, and again it's this sort of scene you've seen a million times, where like the cars pass by the stand, and it's like, oh, it's loud and it's fast, and it's like, okay, no. In this case, there's like a explosion. It's like it like knocks people down and like blows structures down, and it's like, oh, we're doing it this way. It's gonna be ridiculous. Okay.
Yeah, and that the sonic boom of it, like you can see it ripple through them, like they move, and it's like, God, how long, like years to animate this? How many pictures were drawn? I can't, Matt. It's too much.
Yeah, well, the thing I was thinking about it is like, how do you like, and I don't know anything about this. I wish I knew more, but like, how do you art direct something? How do you coordinate a cohesive visual, style and vision for something this immense and have it come out so coherent? Because I mean, obviously, like, one person didn't draw all of this, and I mean, maybe one person did, like, I guess you can still use the term storyboarding for a movie like this, but like, I mean, I imagine even the storyboards for a movie like this were probably thousands of pages,
Yeah, definitely.
And so it's just like, it's such a feat to my mind. We both liked the animation of Akira a lot, but fundamentally that was like, you're basically going for a realistic style with certain, specific, stylistic choices here and there. There's nothing about this movie that's realistic.
Yeah.
But not in the usual, like, a way that everyone has agreed that anime is drawn, that I'm, sort of bored with. It's its own unique, very particular thing.
Yeah. I mean, and I think you're absolutely right that how this gels together, because you have characters like Machine Head, which are this cyborg organism guy. Like, there's some human in there, but he's got like a Duracell battery for a head. And then you have characters like Miki and Todoriko, who are textually in the movie, it says they're from Earth. Like, it shows a picture of Earth, so they're just humans. And like these two different type of characters, like, they look like they're from the same world. And even the stupid the Big Joey, whatever what was it called, Funky Boy? Even Funky Boy, it feels like it belongs in this thing. Like, I think the wonderful thing about Akira was that, like, when he starts turning into this monster, it's so stark and different from everything else that we've seen, that that's where the horror comes from. That this looks like it doesn't belong here. It looks otherworldly. It's disgusting and gross. And everything in this is just like, yeah, sure, okay, there's a giant fucking baby looking thing now. That works. It fits. And then later there's like a giant crab that eats the babe. It's
octopus,
like, and it's
crab
just,
thing.
Yeah, and you're just kind of rolling with it. And like there's never any time where you're just like, well, this is ridiculous. It's like, fuck yeah, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like you're like, in this world, this is how important racing is. There's like this war going on around them, and kaiju are fighting, and they're just trying to win the race still. I mean, that's probably my favorite thing about it, is just the sort of unspoken conceit that this race is so important. It's so important. They're basically like, some body just said, "Oh yeah, the race is taking place on Robo World, which is hostile." Like, why? Why would you do that?
Why would you not do it at a planet that wants it?
To make it more exciting.
Yep, exactly.
To make it crazy. To make this happen.
Yeah. I mean, why would you paint the finish line on like the central building of Robo World? Just to piss them off.
Yeah. One thing, I think another example of like stuff that like you almost feel like it shouldn't work is I don't remember the guy's name, but like the president of Robo World. Everything about that should be really stupid and annoying because he's basically Rita Repulsa. He's like dumb. And his advisors are all, but like the whole thing works for me perfectly. Where I'm just like, I see what we're doing. We're doing it in a fun way. I don't mind that it doesn't really make sense. In fact, that's making it more fun for me. And like we spend a surprising amount of time with the president of Robo World, kind of failing to deal with all of these things. I guess that's the point. Maybe that's why it works, is it's basically comedy of just watching this buffoon and his buffoonish lackeys like failing to do anything right.
Well, to me, he comes the closest to the type of dialogue that I can't stand in anime. Like I wrote a quote down here: "A hyperdimensional drive. They're going to violate our airspace using navigational equipment that only exists in theory. The nerve of those vermin." It's just a ridiculous line of dialogue. It's just absurd. And the thing is that the movie knows that. Like there's no doubt in my mind that you're not supposed to read that line and be like, "Oh yeah, well said, Mr. President." You're just supposed to be like, "This fucking guy. What is that? That's nonsense."
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it, like, I do think there's a certain type of anime I've seen, and people are going to get mad at me about this because I'm speaking in generalities, and every time I do that I get in trouble, but is self-serious to the point of eye rolling, and that is just not what this movie is interested in doing at all. Like every bit that falls into a trope of anime that I've seen before is like, haha, this is dumb, right?
Yeah, right.
and I'm like, yeah, it totally is. Yeah. And I don't know. That's why I dug it. I really did.
Yeah, I think I could probably watch this movie 10 times and still see new things.
Well, here's my thing about this movie. There's actually something that happens, I think, is that your brain eventually just gets used to the movie. Like brains are stupid, right? And we see this like incredible, bright, vibrant, fast moving thing, and it's like it blows you away. But then as you watch it, as you've been watching for an hour and a half, and your brain is kind of like, okay, I'm on the level of this now. It doesn't look as crazy. So you just gotta, like, right before we started recording, I went and watched like 15 minutes of this again, just to see it fresh again, because it's just like, I just watched the ending again. I just watched the final scene.
Yeah.
And it's bombastic. It's insane. It pushes everything forward. It's remarkable. So yeah, I do think this is a film that like you need to watch, and then you need to like set some time apart from it to allow your brain to forget how it doesn't look like anything else in the world, and then watch it again and be like, oh yeah, this is what this movie looks like. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to own this movie just so that I can rewatch it. You know, it is funny. I'm based on what you just said. I Googled just like still frames from Redline, and like they look ridiculous. They don't make any sense, and that's, I mean, it's downright ballsy to like make your whole movie that way. I mean, not literally the whole movie. There's obviously shots that are just like a, you know, or someone in a room. But even those are usually stylistic. It's just,
well, it's just the colors, man. I don't know anything about animation, but the colors and the shading on this thing, it all just makes it pop. Like I think the lines are very bold, so there's a lot of contrast. And again, I'm talking out of my ass here. I'm just guessing, but it just really pops. It really, really does. Everything stands out. It's just remarkable.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Like I know I sound like I'm exaggerating and being hyperbolic when I say that like I went blind, because it sounds very hyperbolic, but like there were parts during the final race where like a thing would happen and I would be so like mentally arrested by the visual complexity of it that I would have to like I was still visually processing it while other things were happening, and I would just miss those things. Normally, I think normally the way when you watch a movie, things are happening at a speed where even if something hangs you up, the next thing kind of goes into your kind of temporary visual buffer, and then you see it like half a second later, something like that. That's just in general, the brain sort of staggers things for you and then stitches it back together, and you don't really notice that you missed anything. But this was so fast and so detailed that I had that it would be like something was cut out of the movie as far as my brain was concerned, because I just didn't have bandwidth. I didn't have bandwidth for it. I didn't have visual bandwidth for what I was seeing. I've never experienced that before, and it was so delightful to be in that position. So
yeah. I mean, I think a lot of movies like sometimes are afraid of overloading you visually. That you'll miss something, and one of the things I love about this movie is it's not worried about that. It's not like it doesn't care if you miss something. Like you can watch it again if you're so worried about that, right? It's just like, this is what we're doing, and strap in and enjoy the ride, enjoy the race.
Right. I think I did actually miss that Frisbee or whatever his name is actually does use the detonator in the first race. I just didn't see that. I just literally didn't see that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you and I haven't talked about the characters that much, actually, except broadly. Like, we haven't actually talked about JP at all.
Yeah.
And I think there's part of me that thinks JP is like the least interesting part of this movie. But even saying that feels wrong, like, as I just said it. But I think it's just because he's the most normal.
Yeah. Well, he's like, I mean, that's the fun thing about JP is he's like sort of a 50s greaser in Dune or Warhammer 40K or something. It's like it's a hilarious juxtaposition between like how this character sees themselves. Like they're driving I'm sorry, what is it? I clicked off of it. They're driving a Trans Am, driving a Trans Am in this race where other people are driving like cybernetic hovercraft, and somehow he's still a contender, and he wears a corny leather jacket and has a giant pompadour, and it's just like that's what's great about it is it's a trope that doesn't fit in this movie at all, and that makes it fit perfectly.
And he just fucking loves racing, man. Yeah. He just like every time he gets in something and goes fast, he just like the glee with which he races and drives is just infectious. Like, that's one thing that really worked about Speed Racer to me, is that our main character Speed just loved to drive. He just loved it, and I think that really is just an infectious feeling that gets you into the movie.
It just makes the character pretty immediately likable. He's a pretty likable character. I think they do a good job with it.
I really love his relationship with Frisbee, this kind of complex relationship where like we see this guy, we meet this guy at the beginning and we don't understand the extent of their background, and we see him as like an antagonist to JP, right? He's like the one that's forcing him to lose the race, the one that's he detonates the thing and stops him from winning, all these things, and then you realize that it is more complicated than that and goes much deeper than that, and we allow Frisbee to kind of come to a realization that he can't, that like I need to let him win, I need to see him win, I need to let him see himself win. It's this wonderful little thing that's like, it's not the focus of the movie, but it's all there.
Yeah. I mean, I think the movie, for all of its racing through things, really gives Frisbee the space to show the kind of quiet moments of conflict and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh my god! And that fucking mobster guy with the fingers on the teeth was like, talk about an effective way to make you hate a character. it's just like incessant and won't stop, and it's just like he's talking while these fingers are in his mouth,
It's
and
gross. Yeah.
ugh.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved how tactilely
Yeah.
disgusting it was.
I thought they did a good job with Sonichi. I thought she had her own story, her own character moments. You understood who she was. You understood their affection for each other. Like, it didn't try to make it too much of a thing, but I don't know. Like, it just I thought it worked really well. I
Was there answer me this. I don't know if I'm going crazy. Was there something going on with her and Machine Head? Because like,
I don't know.
So one thing I noticed is that like there's the moment where her ship crashes, right? Or like her thing is totaled. Like, and it cuts to JP like reacting to her ship being crashed, which makes sense. And then it cuts to Machine Head reacting to her ship being crashed. And I was like, well, why is he doing that? Like, no, they don't show any other racers do that. They don't show any other racers react to her ship crashing.
I don't know.
I don't know. And then like, and I was thinking about it, and she like waved to him. Like, she remember when he met her in the restaurant? JP met her in the restaurant, and she said she was meeting someone, and then he walked in the door and she waved to him. And at first I was like, oh, that was just like they know each other because they're both racers, and she's just saying hi. But I don't know, man. Is there something going on? I don't know.
I think it's entirely possible that I missed tons of stuff just because of how packed it is. I think my interpretation is just like they had raced against each other before, and so they were kind of friendly acquaintances. I didn't see
that's fair.
I didn't see it as being romantic. I could be entirely wrong about that.
I don't know. I mean, he's a machine head. Who knows?
It was like gradually replaced his body with cybernetic parts so that he could race better. And, I thought their whole romance thing was a great, like, this is going to sound like I'm making fun of it, but it was like, this is a perfect 14-year-old's fantasy of racing and falling in love and winning the race as your car explodes.
Yeah.
And you're just everything about it was like tickled that part of me.
Remember when they won the race by a hair? Remember when that happened?
That
I laughed out loud. I laughed out loud when his pompadour wins the race.
It made me so happy because like the first time you see him, I think I wasn't 100% won over by the time that I saw him, and I was like, oh my God, this isn't going to be the protagonist, is it? He looks ridiculous. He looks downright comical. And then, pretty quickly it's like, okay, but that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
And then it's the pompadour that wins the race. And you're like, this is genius.
It's so self-aware in the most fun way. Yeah. No, I like their relationship too. I mean, I like that these two people, like, it's interesting because like Machine Head wants to win. He wants to be the best. Like, Lynchman and Johnny Boya just seemed like they're just ridiculous characters that are just like working for the racing commission and doing and like they have like a film thing. It seems like Sonoshi and JP are these two characters that just like are in it for the purity of racing, right? They just love to race, and they want to win, they want to be the best, but they just love racing. And that's why I love that like the romantic comedy wrinkle in their relationship is when she learns that he has a history of taking dives in races, because to her that's antithetical to everything. Like, why would you ever do that? That's not the purity of racing. And so she's such a great character in that regard, and I love how that gets them to really deal with that issue and bring it up and work through it in the middle of him trying to push a car over.
Yeah, me too. That all worked perfectly for me, and I found it very satisfying. I mean, I also liked how it kind of mirrored the moment where he had seen her, or I guess they had seen each other apparently years before, and she was trying to push her car out of the wall, and now he's trying to do the same, and it's
yeah. I mean, that was even before he was a racer, right? He was just a observer, and she's like chastising him for not giving a shit. And it's what a really interesting dynamic between the two of them.
Yeah, I think that was the obviously a visual spectacle, but I think one of the things that I was like thinking about kind of nonstop since I watched it is like how much story it managed to cram in while feeling like it was a really simple story. And not like it doesn't feel like a convoluted story while you're watching it. You're almost like the story doesn't matter, but then you reflect on it and you realize that you understood all of these things that were happening that you almost just absorbed it without realizing.
Yeah, well, that's what visual storytelling does, right?
Yeah.
And that's why this is so different from so many of the other animes that folks have made us watch, is that this movie trusts, first of all, it tries to tell the story visually, and then it trusts that we're going to pick up on this stuff. And we did, I think.
Yeah, that's a great way of phrasing it. It's like it increased my estimate of how much information per unit time you can absorb through means other than just like dialogue,
Yeah. I mean, I think Mad Max is a great comparison piece here, because I think Fury Road does a very similar thing where a lot of the world building of Mad Max Fury Road is told visually. Like there are these great image connections, like tattoos that people are wearing and how they match up to other things we see, and it's just like it's allowing your brain to make connections and understand the hierarchy of this world and what's going on here without having to have someone sit down and explain to you, okay, here's Robo World. Robo World is at war with these people. And so they don't like it. Like we have some of that. There is still some of that, but it just trusts you. It just like says, okay, go. Like we don't know. We don't really understand who is in charge of this race ever.
Yeah.
Like it seems like it's whoever the Superboyns report to, because it's the princess's ship or whatever.
Right.
But we don't know who the princess is. Like we don't know her role in the universe wide hierarchy of whatever. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah, doesn't matter. It's still exciting to you, and you're sort of curious, but also it doesn't matter at the same time. I think that's why I've referenced like both Dune and Harry Potter. God, why did I say that? Oh, I know why I said that. Dune and Star Wars in this conversation, because both of those things give you this feeling of like a vast universe that you just want to learn more about. And of course, it's an illusion because you don't actually want to learn more about it. Because when you do learn more about it, and you learn that Boba Fett was a clone of Jango Fett and et cetera, like you're just like, oh, okay.
Wait, that's not right, is it?
Boba Fett is a clone of Jango Fett. Yes, it is correct.
I thought Boba Fett was Jango Fett's son.
No, he was his clone. He just said, I want one clone to act as my son. And then
I can't believe I'm so mad at myself for even having this discussion.
It's stupid.
I think you're right.
The point is that you never actually, this is one of my contentions. People have argued with me about this actually, but like, I don't think you want to know where Cthulhu comes from. I think you feel intense curiosity about it, but you're always disappointed when you find out the answer. And a movie like this is purely tickling your curiosity, and that's exactly it. I don't want the companion guide to the universe of Redline that tells you the cybernetic procedure that Machine Head went through. I don't want that. I want just this movie, and to feel dazzled and overwhelmed and that's it.
Curiosity is infectious and important, and it should not be sated sometimes. And it's time once again for Scott Overgeneralizes about anime. This is something that I think anime does very poorly a lot in this regard, that they want to pummel you with world building information, and they want you to understand how all of it works clearly. And so they just front load, they just throw all the stuff at you constantly, blah, blah, blah.
Explaining it verbally too.
Right. And you know what this movie did? In the beginning, as we're scanning over all these people waiting for Redline, we have an announcer that says, and yes, Redline is still the most popular race in the universe. And that's it. That's all we needed. It's a race, and it's popular, and it's dangerous, and there are no rules.
Yeah.
That's it.
We see them using weapons on each other. That's how we know that. Yeah, right. It's great.
It's perfect. Yeah. It's just get in, get out, done. Hey, all anime. I'm talking to all of you anime. Look at Redline and do it like that. Do that.
It is so unique. I mean, we've now watched a horrifically large amount of anime.
What's like a cornucopia that has poop in it? Like, was there a special word for that? Because that's how much anime.
Wasn't going to be quite that mean there, but but like we have watched a lot, and this stands. So this is so unique. This is like none of it. This is like none of that. In fact, if you had told me, oh, this isn't Japanese anime, this is from I don't know, some other country.
Pick a country. Yeah, pick a country.
Korea, or I mean Singapore. I would have been like, oh, okay, sure, yeah. Mm-hmm. It because it's so it's more it's like what I'm fumbling for the word. It's like calling it distinct isn't enough of a compliment. It's like it has nothing in common other than being animated, and I guess certain aspects of like the way faces are drawn in some cases, but not even really.
That's the thing. Yeah, like I don't know. I don't know. I wonder how popular this is amongst like super into anime people. People like I'm sure they'll like it because it's just a good story, and normally you will, but like it's just so different from anime. Like it's even more different. Like we joked last month about Akira, but that's like 20 times more anime than this is.
Yeah. No, I mean our wonderful patrons basically were like, well, you're definitely gonna love this, and they tend to like anime, so.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. Yeah, I almost wish we could like throw Akira off the canon and replace it with this.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I wonder how many. Like, I wasn't really paying attention to sort of the justification for why this movie was put forward, but I wonder if part of it wasn't like knowing how much you love Speed Racer.
Probably,
yeah, because
and like here's the thing I'm gonna say, and it's gonna upset people. I think I still like Speed Racer more, but like I say that with the caveat that Speed Racer is one of my favorite films ever, right? And that there is a very specific thing that the Wachowskis are doing in that movie that applies to me specifically. Like their central metaphor of racing as creation, as art, it like hits me right in my feels, and I cry every time I watch that movie. So like, I don't say this to disparage Redline at all. I just like Speed Racer is like it's like my Everest. It's like, it's just beautiful, and I love it forever. And that doesn't take anything away from this movie, which I thought was remarkable, but I still think Speed Racer is better.
Yeah. I think I'm at the point where I just need to watch this movie a couple more times before I adjudicate. Because I like Speed Racer too, but I don't think it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Whereas this is very fresh for me. So need to process. I think it's, I mean, definitely a big compliment, I think, for me to even say that I want to watch it again, because I think so many of the things that we watch, I'm like, that was really great. Never going to watch it again.
Yeah. I would like to revisit this. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's just the thing you can like throw on while you're doing other stuff, and then like every time you look up, you're guaranteed to see just an incredible visual feast. Yeah, it's good. It's so silly. It's so silly and wonderful. Yeah, like the name of the robot world is Robo World.
Do you remember the part when he gets when he trades in his money for the local currency, and then he tries to buy cigarettes?
What is up with that grandma? She's just like weird, and there's no explanation.
It's just so weird. It's so weird and like uncomfortable, and then it's over, and then you move on, and you never think about it again.
Right. Oh my God, it's wonderful. Yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to say before we move on to the all important vote?
I kept thinking while watching it, like this just reminds me of. And then my brain would like the phenomenon where you reach out for a word and the word's not there. It's like I felt this constant feeling of like nostalgia, except I don't know what it was nostalgia for. And that was a big part of my like enjoyment of it, is like this just reminds me of good things, but non-specifically. I don't know if you felt that way at all.
No,
Okay.
I mean, I'm trying to get my head to where I could like be in that
like I think maybe what it is like the super weird late 80s, early 90s cartoons that would be on TV on like not the kids channels, but like the nighttime.
Oh, you know what? I think like it's heavy metal-ish in some
Heavy
ways.
metal-ish, yes. The thing is, I never saw heavy metal, but I think there was a whole thing happening in that time period where it was like weird ass adult animation.
Yeah, that's just going for broke as far as like character designs.
Yeah,
just crazy,
just
gross looking,
trippy, psychedelic shit. And
yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean now. Yeah, I'm there. I think
that is what was nostalgic about it for me. So that's cool. The last thing I wanted to say is like it reminded me of that in a good way.
Cool. I like it.
Cool.
All right, Matt. So what are you gonna vote on this one?
I mean, definitely best racing anime in the world.
Yeah. True. This is the best racing anime I've ever seen. Is it the best racing movie you've ever seen? I really like racing movies. I don't know if I've ever said that before. I love all racing movies are really enjoyable for me to watch. Yeah,
I kind of figured that you must if you love Speed Racer that much. I mean, you definitely like Speed Racer more than I do, and I'm gonna have to think about whether I like this more than Speed Racer or what's that Will Ferrell movie?
Talladega Nights.
The other great racing movie.
Okay, Matt. Talladega Nights is kind of as silly and irreverent as this at times. Like, yeah, they both end with people out of their cars crossing the finish line on foot.
Yeah,
or in air.
Right. I mean, I would love this to be in the canon. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I think here's I'm going to be weird with this and say this is a harder decision than I thought it was going to be, considering how much I enjoyed the movie. Like, Akira was this movie that just felt important to me in a lot of ways. Like, it just like I think we talked about this when we were talking about it last month, that it just like felt like this is important. This is a statement. This is doing something. And this movie does not feel important in that kind of same way. It's just like it's obviously like its desire is to delight and entertain, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But like it does for some reason give me pause before I just like, yes, absolutely. And that's not fair of me.
I think I can see where your head's at. This was so I keep using the same words, but like so overwhelming in a good way, just in terms of its visual spectacle, that I want it to be a thing where it is on a list where other people see it and go, "What's that? I'll try that out."
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I think that's how I'm gonna go to it, because like I think if you look at our list and see Akira, you're just like, okay,
right,
yeah, it's that duh. But I agree that I had never heard of this thing. Like, I had heard of Akira, I'd never heard of this thing. No, I didn't know what it was at all. And I would absolutely love for people to open up a list and be like, hey, what's that one?
Yeah, it looks weird.
Let me look it up. Yeah. Hey, speaking of which, we got to write this list down. I don't think we've actually done that. I should do that. I should put like a place on our website where you can look at the list.
Oh, okay. I just assumed we had that.
I hadn't actually done that.
We used to have the Kryptonian collection list where we would have a little blurb about each of the movies on the list.
We should do that. That's going to be my project for this weekend.
Okay.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Whether or not this movie gets in or not. Yeah. I am interested to see. So I think we're both going to... One of these days we're going to vote no on something, Matt. Today is not that day. And our vote doesn't really matter. It's y'all's vote out there. So I want to hear from you folks. If you vote yes, why? If you vote no, why? Were you kind of vibing with the same thing I was kind of working through a couple minutes ago? Do you have another racing movie you'd prefer to see? Do you have another animated film you prefer to see? Because like our list is getting like chock full of animation, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but we've got Spider-Verse, we've got Akira, and now potentially we've got this as well. So we're getting a lot of animation on there.
Yeah, and maybe that's what the people want. I don't know. Well,
I mean, it clearly is.
But if it is, then leave us a comment and explain.
Yes,
or is Redline going to go the way of Red Belt?
Oh, that's a reference that nobody's gonna understand.
That's right.
But I did.
Red Belt is the only movie that was not accepted into the Kryptonian collection, which was the first Doof canon of films.
Yeah, it was our first attempt at doing something like this, but only we got votes.
That's right.
And it didn't get in because it's not a good movie.
My brother Daniel brought it to the table, and he went home empty-handed, and things have never been right with us since then.
He still won't talk to me. It's really sad. I'm sorry, Daniel. Your movie was bad. It's okay. And you know what it takes for me to say a movie's bad. I just want to preface that like I'm pretty easy when it comes to films.
I don't remember you saying it was bad. I'll have to go back.
No, I think it's a bad movie. It's a bad movie.
It's David Mamet.
Yeah, but like just because Mamet can write good dialogue doesn't mean he doesn't have to do anything else. It's nonsense. It's a nonsense movie.
Anyway, that's Red Belt for you, everyone.
Yeah, so let us know what you think. Make sure to click the link in the show notes and vote for or against Redline. All right, Matt. Before we left for the week, I just wanted to have a quick segment here where you and I talk about the news that hit last Friday, which is that beloved actor Chadwick Boseman passed away from colon cancer at the age of 43, which is terrifying because you and I are very close to 43.
Uh-huh.
We're getting there. I've kind of spent every day since last Friday thinking about this. This is one of those celebrity deaths that hit me way harder than I thought it was going to. I rewatched Black Panther over the weekend, and while that is a movie that as a critic I had some problems with, especially in the third act. I think it falls prey to some of the worst tendencies of Marvel films. As a person that exists in on this planet and exists in seeing the cultural reaction to this film, it is a movie that I absolutely adore, and I think Chadwick Boseman's regal and powerful performance is such a huge part of what makes that movie what it is and what made that character what it is. I've spent the week reading tributes to him from everyone that worked with him, and one of the things that I didn't realize is how integral he was to shaping what this character was. He basically said he needs to speak with an African accent. That was not in the original plan. That was Chadwick saying, no, he needs to do that. That's the way he would talk. We need to do that. And he kind of made them understand why that was important. So, it's just a incomparable loss. It's, I still haven't fully processed it.
Yeah, I think I haven't either. I don't know if I could stand watching Black Panther right now. I don't know. It did feel weirdly too close. I think I feel the same as you, where I don't think his name was on the list of people that I would have been broken up about beforehand. But really, I mean, I think just part of it is anytime someone that young dies, especially where you learn the full story of it, you learn that he had the diagnosis all through the filming of Black Panther. He was fighting it, and he was also putting on weight to be this muscular superhero at the same time, and he was and he was a leader to the other actors, and kind of a visionary in certain ways, and believed that he was going to make it, that he was going to win this struggle. And it all just kind of adds up into a really saddening picture.
Yeah, but a incredible life lived. You look at his run. I mean, he is a person that did not achieve fame and success until fairly late in his life, right? His first like big role was playing Jackie Robinson in the movie 42, and that was 7 years ago. So, you know, he was in his mid to late 30s when he, you know, achieved fame. And he just like, I mean, look at the run he went on. He got to play Jackie Robinson, he got to play James Brown, he got to play Thurgood Marshall, and he got to helm an enormous MCU franchise. Like this is the run that any actor would kill for, and he did it in this course of like 6 years. And I think that shows his talent, his skill, his ability to pick up the mantle of these incredibly important real life figures of our history, and also like to pick up this incredibly important cultural moment of Black Panther and what that movie represented to so many Americans and people around the world. And he shouldered all of that while sick, and he did it, you know, with grace and humility and power. I mean, like it's just incredible. Yeah. It really is. Like it becomes even more tragic when you realize just how good of a person this man was.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it. You know, one of the things about these celebrity deaths is like the stories of how amazing they really were only really come out and get publicized after they're gone. And then and so you don't even really realize what you lost until after you've lost it, which I think is sad. I don't know if there's any other way that we can structure our society so that we actually appreciate the people we have while we have them. I see the problem. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he was like this philosopher in a sense, you know, I already said visionary, but like he seemed to, it wasn't like he was just choosing these roles because they were, you know, going to make him a lot of money or whatever. I think that he had a vision of what he wanted to do with his career. Or at least that's what it seems like.
Yeah. I mean, there was a story where I read that he, back when he was still doing like soap operas, and he got cast as a character, and he felt the character was too stereotypical, you know, black kid, that he was uncomfortable with the stereotypes to the point where he said, I can't do this role, and he turned it down. And you know, like when you're a struggling actor and every job is paying rent and getting you to the next job, that's like to be that principled is pretty powerful. So yeah, I think that did define his entire career. I mean, and he like got to work with Spike Lee on Defy Bloods, which came out this year, and he's not in that movie very much, but he is just a presence in that movie. I think like Spike Lee said we wanted to shoot him like Superman and Jesus, and the one of the reasons he cast Chadwick Boseman in that role is because that's just the presence he has when you put him on a set and put a camera in front of him. That's just what he generates. It's this remarkable thing. I mean, you really need, if you haven't seen Get On Up, the James Brown movie, it's pretty good. Like what he channels there is remarkable.
Cool. I have not.
Yeah. What a performer. It is really sad. It's really sad. But we get to watch his movies still. That's the remarkable thing about all this. We get to remember him, and I will continue to watch his movies, and everyone else should too. I think Get On Up is on HBO Max, I think. Yes. Is
that the one that you would like most recommend, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, I liked 42 as well. It's been longer since I've seen 42 than Get On Up, so I'm not sure. But
okay.
I have not seen Marshall, where he played Thurgood Marshall. I've not seen that movie. I mean, honestly, I would recommend Defy Bloods, but again, he's not in that very, very much. So,
okay.
But Get On Up is really good. Really good.
All right.
So, did you want to talk about anything, Matt, after we've kind of brought the vibe down a little bit?
Oh, I don't know if it's appropriate for me to talk about Upgrade with this vibe, but I saw Upgrade recently. It's very fun.
That is the 2018 film. Logan Marshall Green, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
It's about a guy who gets an implant, like an AI chip implant. I'm not spoiling anything. This is in the trailer. and it's an action movie. And when I saw the trailer, I remember thinking, like, this looks like fun, but it also looks like a dumb action movie, and it is probably going to annoy me because movies never get AI right. And I never saw it. And then when I finally saw it recently, like this week, I was like, okay, it did the AI right. Nothing about it really annoyed me. It's well done. It's a well done plot. Really, kind of everything about it comes together and it works well. And I recommend it, especially if you're into like sci-fi action movies, which I am.
Yeah, I enjoyed this movie. I wasn't as big of a fan of the story. It wasn't that engaging to me, but like the way the action is shot, like carries the movie. I think it's really fun. It's incredibly violent, but shot really fun.
It's very innovative, which says a lot. I mean, I feel like every once in a while, like a new kind of innovative way of doing action comes along, and it seems like action has been stale recently, and this was very refreshing to watch, actually. Yeah,
it was directed by Lee Winnell, who also directed The Invisible Man, this year's movie, and he's making Wolfman and Escape from New York. Wow. And he's in pre-production they're making Upgrade into a TV series, so he's busy.
Yeah,
this guy.
Those all sound fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, The Invisible Man is a really excellent movie. You should definitely see that. And he like uses some of his chops at directing things in interesting, new-looking ways to make that movie a lot of fun, for sure.
Yeah, I already wanted to see that, and now that I've seen this one and realized how creative it is, I want to see it even more.
Cool. All right. Is that all you wanted to say about Upgrade?
Yeah, just kind of Matt rarely watches things, and then when he does and he likes it, he likes to give it a little plug on the Doofcast. Yeah. That's what this segment is called.
Go watch Upgrade, everybody. All right, folks, that is all we have for you this week. If you have any opinions on Redline, on Chadwick Boseman, or on Upgrade, please feel free to reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com or over on our Twitter account at doofmedia.
Yeah, if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, then we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And you can find this and all of our shows over at our website, doofmedia.com. That's where you can find Kingslingers, our chapter-by-chapter deep dive into Stephen King's magnum opus, The Dark Tower. If you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. You can head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia, and at the $20 level, you can select one movie for us to do an episode of this show on, but as an added bonus, you also get access to the council, so you can help decide what additional movie we cover each month. Please join that and help us defeat the anime contingent that keeps bringing anime. Although those last 2 months, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, but surely there isn't any more good anime.
No, this is it. We've done it. It's over.
Yeah, we've tapped it out.
And you're already going to be over on our Patreon, right? Because you're going to be voting for Redline or against Redline. So you're already going to be doing that. So you might as well, while you're there, just like toss a $5.
Yeah, a cup of coffee a month.
Do Americans say $5? I don't think we say that, right? That's more of
maybe it's a regional dialect.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I just say things sometimes.
I've never heard it or used it, but I think I don't know, man. Maybe. Anyway, you should also really seriously consider the option of reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. I think
yes,
it's really an option worth looking into if you're in the market to leave a podcast review. Then you would want to do it on Apple Podcasts, and you would want to do it for the Doofcast.
Why are you being so weird? You're saying this so weirdly.
It's because I've read this sentence like 1,000 times, Scott. Anyway, every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
You know, Ron Burgundy, just because it says it on the script doesn't mean you have to read it the same way every time. Well, you can mix it up.
That's what I was doing.
Yeah, but do better. That was bad.
I think it was genius.
All right, folks, we will see you all next week when our long-awaited, we had to delay it a couple weeks, it turns out, but our episode covering season 2 of The Legend of Korra is coming. It will be here next week, and we hope you will join us for that.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.